There are strong YouTube hooks starting with character names for your documentary. Each is designed to grab attention in the first 5 to 10 seconds. Michael Carter seemed like a successful financial consultant living a perfect life in New Jersey. But one cold October night, his entire family was found murdered inside their own home. Michael Carter, Laura Carter, Ethan, and Lily were a normal suburban family, until a horrifying crime turned their quiet home into one of the most disturbing murder scenes in New Jersey history. Michael Carter thought his past financial mistakes were long forgotten, but someone was about to return to Oakridge Lane and turn his entire family's life into a nightmare. Laura Carter, Michael Carter, and their 2 children were sleeping peacefully in their New Jersey home, unaware that by morning their house would become the center of a brutal mass murder investigation. Daniel Mercer lost everything after trusting Michael Carter with his savings, and years later, a mysterious night in New Jersey would connect his name to a crime that shocked the entire country. Michael Carter built a quiet life for his family on Oakridge Lane, but hidden secrets, old financial betrayals, and a mysterious visitor would soon lead to a brutal family massacre. Ethan and Lily Carter were just children growing up in a peaceful neighborhood, until a terrifying crime scene inside their own home shocked investigators across New Jersey. Daniel Mercer had disappeared months before the murders, but when police followed the evidence, his name suddenly became the most disturbing clue in the Carter family massacre. If you want, I can also give you best thumbnail text, viral style, AI image prompts for each chapter, SEO, description, hashtags, 25 high-ranking keywords for your YouTube video. Oakridge Lane in New Jersey was known as one of the quietest streets in the area. The neighborhood was filled with neat houses, trimmed lawns, and families who had lived there for years. Most evenings were calm, with neighbors walking their dogs and children riding bicycles along the sidewalks. Nothing serious had ever happened on that street, and people believed it was the kind of place where danger simply did not exist. At the very end of the street stood a large white house surrounded by tall trees. This was the home of the Carter family. Michael Carter worked in New York as a financial consultant and spent long hours commuting to the city. His wife, Laura, stayed home and focused on raising their 2 young children, Ethan and Lily. From the outside, their life appeared stable and comfortable. The family often kept to themselves, but they were always polite when greeting neighbors. Late one October night, the quiet routine of Oakridge Lane was broken by something no one noticed at the time. The neighborhood looked completely normal from the outside. Streetlights cast a soft glow across the pavement, and most homes were dark as families slept peacefully inside. The Carter house also appeared silent and still. Hours passed before anything unusual was discovered. Early the next afternoon, a delivery driver arrived with a package addressed to the Carter home. As the driver approached the front door, something seemed strange. The door was slightly open, moving gently in the cold autumn wind. The house was completely silent. Inside those walls, a horrifying crime had already taken place. Police officers arrived at the Carter house within minutes after the emergency call was made. Patrol cars lined Oakridge Lane as flashing lights filled the quiet neighborhood. Curious neighbors watched from a distance while investigators carefully entered the home. What they found inside immediately confirmed that this was not a normal crime scene. The house looked strangely calm, but the silence felt heavy and unsettling. Furniture remained in place, decorations still hung neatly on the walls, and nothing appeared to be missing. Yet as officers moved through the rooms, they discovered the bodies of the Carter family in different areas of the house. The scene showed clear signs that a brutal attack had taken place during the night. Forensic teams began documenting everything carefully. Each room was photographed, and every object was examined for fingerprints or other evidence. The first detail that puzzled investigators was the lack of forced entry. Doors and windows were locked, and there were no broken locks or shattered glass. This suggested that whoever entered the house may have been allowed inside. Another strange discovery added to the mystery. Neighbors living only a few houses away reported hearing nothing unusual during the night. There were no sounds of a struggle, no loud noises, and no signs that something terrible had happened just steps away from their homes. Investigators also noticed that several valuable items inside the house were untouched. Expensive electronics, jewelry, and cash were still in their places. Robbery did not appear to be the motive behind the crime. As detectives continued searching for clues, one troubling question became clear. Who would want the entire Carter family dead? As investigators continued searching for clues, they began looking beyond the walls of the Carter house. Detectives started examining nearby homes for security cameras that might have captured activity during the night of the murders. Oakridge Lane was a quiet street, but several houses had recently installed cameras for basic home security. One camera quickly became very important to the investigation. It belonged to a house directly across the street from the Carter home. The device faced the road and recorded the street 24 hours a day. Detectives collected the footage and began carefully reviewing every hour from the night of the crime. For a long time, the video showed nothing unusual. Cars passed occasionally, and the street remained quiet as most homes turned dark late in the evening. But shortly after midnight, something caught the investigators' attention. A dark-colored vehicle slowly entered Oakridge Lane and stopped not far from the Carter house. The car remained parked there for several minutes without any visible movement. The headlights were turned off, making the vehicle difficult to see clearly. Nearly 20 minutes later, the car quietly pulled away and disappeared down the street. The camera resolution was not strong enough to clearly show the driver's face or the license plate. However, investigators were able to confirm that the vehicle had arrived during the estimated time of the murders. The discovery raised an important possibility. Whoever was inside that car might have been watching the Carter house before the attack. The person may have known exactly where the family lived, and that suggested the killer might not have been a stranger at all. As detectives continued examining the Carter family's background, they focused closely on Michael Carter's professional life. At first glance, his career appeared successful. He worked as a financial consultant and managed investments for several clients in New York and New Jersey. His job involved handling large amounts of money and making important financial decisions for people who trusted him with their savings. However, a deeper investigation began to reveal problems that had remained hidden from the public. Financial records showed that several investment projects connected to Michael had collapsed years earlier. Some investors had lost significant amounts of money after trusting his advice. Although no criminal charges were ever filed, the situation had created tension between Michael and several former clients. Investigators carefully reviewed old complaints and reports connected to those failed investments. One name appeared repeatedly in documents and emails connected to the case: Daniel Mercer. Mercer had reportedly invested nearly his entire savings into one of Michael Carter's financial strategies almost 10 years earlier. When the investment failed, Mercer suffered heavy financial losses that changed his life completely. According to records, he had tried multiple times to contact Michael during the past year. Detectives discovered that Mercer had sent several messages asking to discuss the past investment. Some of those messages had gone unanswered. The discovery raised serious questions. If Mercer still held anger or resentment after all those years, investigators wondered whether he might have tried to confront Michael. Police began searching for Mercer's current location, but when they checked the address listed in official records, they found that he had moved away months earlier. The man who might have had a strong reason to hate Michael Carter had suddenly disappeared. Days passed as investigators continued searching for new clues, but the case remained frustratingly unclear. The discovery of Daniel Mercer's past conflict with Michael Carter had created a possible motive, yet there was still no proof that he had been near the Carter home on the night of the murders. Detectives needed something stronger to move the investigation forward. Then an unexpected piece of information appeared. A teenage boy from a neighborhood contacted the police after seeing news coverage about the case. At first, he believed what he had seen was unimportant, but the reports about the mysterious vehicle made him remember something unusual from that night. The boy explained that he had been awake late and looking out of his bedroom window sometime after midnight. From his window, he could see the back area of the Carter property and a narrow path leading into a wooded section behind several houses. According to his memory, he had noticed a man walking near the Carter home. The man was dressed in dark clothing and moved calmly, not running or showing any signs of panic. What made the sight strange was the direction the man took. Instead of walking toward the street, the figure headed straight into the woods behind the neighborhood. Police immediately organized a search of the wooded area. Officers carefully examined the ground, branches, and bushes for anything unusual. After several hours of searching, investigators found something hidden beneath a pile of fallen leaves. It was a dark jacket with visible blood stains. Inside one of the pockets was a small receipt from a gas station located nearly 50 miles away. The small gas station receipt quickly became one of the most important pieces of evidence in the investigation. Detectives traced the location printed on the paper and traveled to the station early the next morning. The building stood along a quiet highway nearly 50 miles from Oakridge Lane, a place where travelers often stopped briefly before continuing long drives. Investigators asked the station manager for security footage from the night printed on the receipt. After reviewing several hours of recordings, they finally located the moment when the purchase had been made. A man walked inside shortly before midnight, paid for fuel, and left the store within a few minutes. Although the camera quality was not perfect, the man's face was visible long enough for investigators to examine it carefully. The image was sent through a facial recognition system connected to public records. Within hours, the software produced a match. The man in the video strongly resembled Daniel Mercer. Detectives immediately began searching for Mercer's current location. Further records showed that he had recently been renting a small apartment in a nearby town under a slightly different name. Police quickly moved to the address, hoping to question him about the evidence. But when officers arrived at the apartment building, the door to Mercer's room was already unlocked. Inside, the room looked strangely empty. Several belongings were gone, as if someone had left in a hurry. However, investigators discovered something troubling on a small table near the window. There was a printed map of Oakridge Lane with the Carter house, clearly marked. After discovering the map of Oakridge Lane in Daniel Mercer's apartment, investigators became convinced that the attack on the Carter family had been carefully planned. The evidence suggested that Mercer had studied the neighborhood before the night of the murders. However, one major problem remained. Mercer himself was missing. Detectives searched transportation records and soon uncovered another important clue. Just one day after the murders, Mercer had purchased a one-way bus ticket leaving the state. The ticket led investigators to believe that he had tried to escape immediately after the crime. Police contacted authorities in several nearby states and shared Mercer's description. Hotels, motels, and transportation stations were asked to report if anyone matching his identity appeared. Several days later, officers received a call from a small roadside motel hundreds of miles away. A man using Mercer's name had checked into a room but had not been seen leaving since the previous day. When police entered the motel room, they found Daniel Mercer lying on the floor. He was dead. At first, the situation appeared to be a suicide. There were no obvious signs of struggle inside the room, and Mercer had been alone since checking in. However, investigators quickly noticed details that made the situation far more complicated. Forensic specialists examining the timeline discovered inconsistencies between Mercer's death and the physical evidence collected from the Carter crime scene. Certain traces suggested that the attack on the family may have involved more than one person. If Mercer had help, then someone else connected to the murders was still free. The discovery of Daniel Mercer's death only deepened the mystery surrounding the Carter family murders. Investigators now faced a troubling situation. The man who appeared most connected to the crime was no longer alive, and many of the answers they hoped to find had disappeared with him. Yet the evidence left behind continued to raise serious doubts that Mercer had acted alone. Forensic experts carefully reviewed every detail from the Carter house again. They studied fingerprints, footprints, and the positions of objects inside the home. While some clues pointed toward Mercer, other pieces of evidence did not match him at all. Certain markings suggested the presence of another individual who had never been identified. Detectives also examined Michael Carter's financial history more deeply than before. Old business records revealed that several other investors had suffered major losses during the same failed investment project that had ruined Mercer's finances. Some of those people had expressed anger toward Carter in the past, though none had ever been considered dangerous. Despite months of investigation, no clear suspect could be connected to the additional evidence. Every lead eventually reached a dead end. Without Mercer alive to explain his actions, the truth remained hidden behind unanswered questions. Over time, the Carter house stood empty, becoming a painful reminder of the tragedy that had taken place there. Eventually, the property was demolished, and a new home was built on the land. Oakridge Lane slowly returned to its quiet routine. But the mystery of who truly planned the New Jersey Family Massacre has never been fully solved.